This lesson is going to look at 3 different ways that we can actually borrow money. Before we start to borrow money, we have to start to understand some of the key phrases. So one of the key phrases that we need to know is the amortization period. Now, amortization is just a big word to say basically how much time it's going to take us to pay back the loan. So if you have a loan for 2 weeks, the amortization period is 2 weeks. 5 years, the amortization period is 5 years. So now we're going to look at some other words that are really important when we're borrowing money. One of the ways we can borrow money is called a line of credit. Now, a line of credit is similar to a loan. A loan is something you go to the bank and you ask for money and they decide if they'll give you money or not. A line of credit is something you can do just once. You can go to the bank and apply for a line of credit. And what that says is you have a loan that's there whenever you need to use it. You don't ever have to go back to the bank and ask for the money. It's sitting in an account waiting for you to use it. So if you use it, they start charging you interest. If you're not using it, it just sits there and you can use it at any time you want with no interest. So it's pre-approved. Another way that people borrow money, usually on a monthly basis, is an overdraft protection on your account. So if you have a checkings account that you write checks on for rent, for groceries, for anything else, you could apply to have overdraft protection, which means if you spend more than you actually have in your account in a month, the bank automatically just gives you the money. So you could be, your bank account could have $100 in it. You buy something for $300. If you have an overdraft protection, that means that all of a sudden your bank account now is minus $200 because you spent the 100 that was in there and the bank now put $200 in there so you could buy the item for $300. That is also a small loan that you set up with your bank, and then you have to pay it off at the end of the month. A payday loan, you see a lot of these ads on TVs for payday loans. They're meant for short-term loans, so you just need money in a pinch. The bad thing about a payday loan, as we'll see in these examples, it has an extremely high interest rate, way more higher than anything else that we'll be talking about. And then one of the things we need to consider is when we talk about defaulting our loans. A default in a loan says you just didn't pay it, and then the bank will take actions to get their money back. So those are key phrases that we need to know before we even start looking at loans, lines of credits, and overdrafts. So the first example, we have a guy named Richard. He has car insurance of $1,400 and it's due in 2 days, but he doesn't have the cash available. So he went to a payday loan store. He had to repay the store $1,635.20 within 14 days, so within 2 weeks. And the question's saying, what is his daily interest rate on the loan? So he borrowed $1,400 and they asked him to pay back over $1,600. The first thing we need to know is, well, how much interest did they actually charge Richard for this? So if he had to pay back $1,635.20 but only borrowed $1,400, the amount of interest that he had to pay them was $235. So in 2 weeks, they charged him $235. So it's going to ask, what is the daily interest rate? Now we're going to look at the simple interest formula. The simple interest formula that we learned a long time ago is interest equals the principal times the rate times the time. What we do know in this example is that he was charged $235 worth of interest. The principal, that's the word for how much money he borrowed, was $1,400. We don't know what the rate is. That's what we're trying to figure out. And he had it for 14 days. So now we have to manipulate this equation to figure out how much his interest rate is. So the 235 stays. We can multiply these two numbers. So in our calculator, we could say 1,400 multiplied by 14. That tells us $19,600. That's the multiplication. Still times R. Now to isolate from R, we have to do the opposite operation. That's what's happening between here. These two things are multiplying. So we're going to divide out the 19,600 from both sides. So we have 235 divided by 19,600. And we get this decimal, remembering that this is a percentage as a decimal. So if I times by 100, it would actually give me my percentage. So he's getting charged 1.2 roughly percent per day interest. Now that might not seem like a lot, but as we see in the next question, so this is how much he got charged interest per day. The next question says, well, what would his annual interest rate be? And some of the examples we had seen before in credit card debt, we had like 23% interest a year or 18 or 19% interest a year. So if this is how much interest, 1.2% a day, there's 365 days in a year. His interest rate, if they were to charge him per year, is 438% a year. That is incredible. So you could see payday loans are only to be used in short pinches. You would not want to take this out over a 5-year amortization period. 438% a year is a lot of money to be paying back. So our next example has Safia borrowing $500 from a payday loan store, and she agreed to repay the loan in 30 days at an interest rate of 1.15% per day. How much will she have to repay this payday loan store? So if we look at the interest is principal times rate times time. We want to figure out how much they're going to charge her to borrow this money. So she's borrowing $500. The interest rate that they're charging her is 1.15%. So as a decimal, I take 1.15, divide by 100, and I get 0.0115. That's the interest rate per day, and she's having it out, it says, for 30 days. So if we crunch these numbers, so 500 times 0.0115 multiplied by the 30 days it's in there, the interest they're going to charge her in 1 month is $172.50. So that's the interest. But the question actually says, how much does she have to repay? Well, she borrowed $500 and she has to pay them additional $172.50. So she's going to have to pay back $672.50 at the end of the month to borrow that $500. Again, $172 when you've only borrowed $500 is quite a bit of money. The last example we're going to look at is borrowing money from a bank on a loan. And we have this gentleman named Stanley, and he borrowed $4,500 from his credit union to do some home renos. The loan had an annual interest rate of 5.75%, 5.75. He's borrowing $4,500, and he needs to borrow it for 3 years in order to pay it back. Now it says you'll need the personal loan payment calculator table on page 320. Well, this is actually on the next page. So we'll look at this right away in this example. And it's saying if he borrowed the $4,500 at 5.75% for 3 years, what will his monthly payment be? So this is question A. And this table you're going to need for your assignment as well. So on the next page, we have this table. And the question is saying that he's borrowing 5.75%. So we're going to look on this table, and here is 5.75. And he's borrowing it for, and these are the term in years, he's borrowing it for 3 years. So now we just bring these in here, and this is his monthly payment. However, we need to, as in any table that's presented to us, read what this table is actually saying. The table is saying this is the monthly payment if you borrowed $1,000. So we're going to have to do some math to figure out, because he borrowed more than $1,000. But if he only borrowed $1,000, his monthly payment is $30.31. So I'm going to go back to our notes, and I'm going to record this number. $30.31 based on a $1,000 loan. Now in math, you would have come up with situations where we can learn how to cross multiply. We could make a ratio in this example. So what we do know is that if you borrow $1,000, your monthly payment is going to be $30.31. So this is what you borrowed, and this is your payment. My ratio is saying, well, Stanley didn't borrow $1,000. He borrowed $4,500. So based on that, what would his monthly payment be? So this now turns into a cross multiplication situation. So I could draw the cross, and I'm going to multiply the two numbers that are on the end of the stick. So I have right here 3031 and 4500. Those are going to be multiplied. 3031 times 4500. And I'm going to divide by the number that's alone on the end of one of these sticks. So I'm going to divide by 1,000. And that will tell me my question mark. Or in this case, this is going to tell me how much his payment would be if he borrowed $4,500. So I got $30.31 times 4,500 divided by the 1,000, exactly what we wrote there. So his payment, and remember, money goes to two decimal places. His payment for $4,500 is $136.40. That 5 rounds the 39 up to 40 cents. So this is how much he has to pay per month, and this is the question, or the answer for question A. Question B now says, calculate the total amount he'll pay over 3 years. So for B, what we do know is that he's paying the bank $136.40 every month. And we want to figure out how much is he going to pay for 3 years that he's borrowing it. So if this is every month, I'm going to multiply it by 12 months to tell me how much he pays in a year, and then multiply that by the 3 years. So these two numbers, 136.40, is the monthly payment times 12 months. That'll tell me how much in a year. And then that answer times by 3 will tell me after 3 years how much Stanley actually paid back to his credit union. So we got 136.40 times by 12 and then multiplied by 3. Stanley's actually going to pay back to his bank $4,910.40. So this is what he pays back. Now that's not his interest. Question C goes on to say, what is his finance charge? So basically, how much did the bank charge him to borrow that money? So this is a simple calculation. He had to pay the bank back $4,910.40, but he only borrowed $4,500. So if I subtracted those, this would be my finance charge, and the finance charge would be $410.40. So to borrow this for 3 years, it only cost him $410. And if you compare that, now this is a loan from the bank. If you compare this to how much this person had to pay back, she only borrowed for 30 days, 1 month, and the bank charged her $172 of interest. And if I go back even one more page and look at our first example, he had to pay back $235 just in 2 weeks to borrow this money from a payday loan store. So payday loan stores can end up getting you into a lot of financial problems. So the best way, if you can do it, is to actually get a loan from the bank. And as I said, this table here is going to help us figure out our payments per month based on $1,000. This table you'll need for your assignment. So just to show another example, if I said I want to borrow $1,000 for the bank, I want to have it out for 5 years, but the interest rate the bank's going to charge me is 7.25%. They're saying, what's my monthly payment on that? Well, I'd go to the 5-year column. Here's 5 years. 7.25 is right here. I go along to where these meet up. I'm going to have a monthly payment of $19.92 per month for 5 years. Okay, if I borrowed $2,000, I'd have to times this number by 2. $3,000 times this number by 3. So this table we're going to be using a lot for the assignment that follows this lesson.